believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tom McDonald, Board of Directors for the NABC and a 2-year college coach rep. Welcome to the NABC Championship webinar series. I'd like to take a couple moments just to thank a lot of people that have made these things possible. From the NABC staff, Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, Troy Hilton, Eric Weiberg, and the rest of the NABC staff, they've been unbelievably supportive to do everything we need to get this thing done. They were really important when we were working on the fall 5 in-person clinics, and then when they got canceled due to this virus, COVID-19, and I hope everybody's safe and just staying safe and staying away from people, and that's why these webinars are so beneficial, and I appreciate the board of directors for being involved. Our next guest is on that board of directors, and he's been nothing but supportive throughout this whole process. Another special thanks to Mike Bray, who was the president, and now it's Jamie Dixon. I think it's 2 days into his term. We've had the Gun, which sponsors these things, and they've been just making sure these things happen. We have so many people signed up, and the success of this thing has been greatly appreciated. And then Sideline Interactive is a company that does like the boards on your bench. They're going to give away one table, 8 feet long, LED, free shipping. It's worth $11,000. They're going to give it to somebody during this this run through May 1st. And then KBA, which is interesting, Coach Frank Martin's going to show what he got. But if a coach is quarantined and they couldn't get out or get to their office, they've given magnetic boards, they've given marker boards, whatever a coach needs to be able to share. And then Championship Productions for what they've done to put these things on too. Bill Bergen, the owner, Nate Landis, Daryl Bennett, and then I've been involved with them for about 20 some years. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, which is a great pleasure. He's one of the guys that anytime I need something, I bug him. Anytime I need his support, it's there. He's been instrumental in the 2-year college student athlete in the summer, the June scholastic recruiting events. Just giving his support has been greatly, greatly appreciated. This year they were 18-13, South Carolina 10-8 in the conference, but he's 264 and 172 overall. He's been in, I think, 5 NCAA tournaments. Let me look here for make sure. But the biggest story I want to give you is this. He's one of you. He's one of us. He's been a high school coach. He's been at smaller Division I schools. He's been at the big time schools, Power 5 schools. Everywhere he's been, they've won. He was a Big 12 Coach of the Year in 2010, NABC District 8 Coach of the Year. He was the Coach of the Year in 2010 also. NCAA, and he was in the Final Four. He's been in 5 NCAA tournaments in a Final Four, and he's been in the NIT twice. Everybody knows him by how hard his teams play, the defensive intensity. So with that, I'd like to welcome Frank Martin.
Hey, Tom, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm lucky. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the efforts of others when I was a young coach that taught me how to share the game. I think some of the guys that you had on yesterday and earlier today are great representatives of that point. And we were just talking before we got on about Leonard Hamilton. You know, Leonard in his time at Miami, I was a young high school coach when he first got there, and his willingness to teach me and show me what college basketball was. Because we as high school coaches, we think we know what college basketball is. And in reality, outside of the world of recruiting, you have no idea what actually takes place in college basketball. So I'm always happy to do these. It's a moment to share what I know or what I think, because there might be someone out there that can be impacted by it the way I was impacted when I was a young coach. And to this day, I love listening to other people talk basketball and speak about the business at all levels, because it's a great opportunity to learn. And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to talk offense, because it's our defense is kind of unique. It's kind of the Princeton offense of defenses. The way we defend is completely different than 99% of the people. And I'm not here to talk defense, but everyone teaches to stay between their man and the basket. Well, the way I teach it, the only person that does that is the guy guarding the ball. Everyone else plays between the ball and their man. And so it's different. And so everybody's always intrigued with listening to that. But I'm excited to actually talk offense, because there's this huge misconception out there. People, the world of recruiting gets interesting sometimes. The kind of messages that they share with kids and their parents, and it's not just other college coaches. It's whoever's involved in the kids' recruitment, trying to persuade them that I'm not going to let them play. But we played the 9th fastest tempo of any team in the country this year. I think Nate Oates was on a little earlier today, if I'm not mistaken. And, Alabama plays really fast, and they shoot, a bunch of threes. Heck, we struggled to guard them this year. We played faster than them. But that's never really spoken about. So being able to talk about that today gets me excited, because maybe we can change the narrative a little bit.
We wanted to free you up, spread your wings out there and show everybody what you do. Hey, being in all those board of directors meetings, one thing I know is a passion of yours is education.
Yeah.
And know you've been a high school teacher, a high school coach, and very successful. And I just wanted to see if you could share some of your stories, your influence, or the influence on you growing up, and where it's led you to be now the person you are, and for your own kids too.
Absolutely. My where I come from, it's kind of unique, because you're talking about son of Cuban immigrants that lived in a predominantly Cuban neighborhood, just west of downtown Miami, an area called Little Havana. And our high school coach was also our 12 and under coach. And he lived in the neighborhood, and he went to that high school. And then his assistants also lived in the neighborhood. And his name's Marcos Rodriguez. Everyone knows him as Shaky. And I can't believe he's still coaching high school basketball. I mean, it's the amount of wins. He's been a head coach at the Division I level. But we came up underneath him, and he taught us the game in a neighborhood where everyone played football and baseball. And his lessons to us at a young age, whether we were good players or bad players, we never looked at it that way. We looked at like, wow, he's teaching us to play a sport and teaching us to compete. And it's something that we're forever, all of us that are from that neighborhood, whether it's Sergio Rocco, who's an assistant at Austin Peay University, or it's Anthony Grant, the head coach, University of Dayton. I'm just talking about guys in the Division I level. To a certain extent, Tony Pujol, the head coach at North Alabama. We're all from that pocket, that neighborhood. Alan Edwards, who was just the head coach at Wyoming, Doug Edwards on my staff. He taught us all how to understand basketball. And because of that, we all got this love for education. And so I became a high school coach. And in Florida, to be the head coach, you got to be a teacher. So I spent 8 years as a JV coach, then became my own coach at my own school, taught mathematics. There's a principal that impacted us in incredible ways. His name was Diego Garcia. He was my uncle's teacher at that high school. And then he was my principal when I was in school there. And then he was the principal that hired me when I became the head coach at Miami Senior High School. And, and then you're at a clinic one day, one of the NABC, one of the clinics that have been put on forever. And Bob Huggins was a speaker. And I went up and introduced myself. And I was young. I was 23, 24. And anyone that knows Hugs knows that he gives you his time. He doesn't stiff arm you and push you away. And so quick handshake, introduced myself, walked away. Well, little did we know that he was going to end up, he had just gotten hired to Cincinnati, that he was going to end up recruiting a 2-year college player that had played for us at Miami Senior. And he comes down to recruit him, and I go up to reintroduce myself, and he goes, I remember you, you know, and just because of that, I said, God, I want to watch his teams play. And I started watching Cincinnati play, and he and I struck a friendship. And, you know, in summer of 2000, I had an opportunity to get hired at Northeastern. He was one of the first guys to pick up the phone and help me get there. In 2004, you know, he hired me at Cincinnati. And then, you know, little did I know, 10 months later, he was going to lose his job. But long story short, I end up on that staff with Andy Kennedy, with Bob Huggins. And then we go to, Andy gets Ole Miss, Hugs gets K-State, and Hugs convinced the president to hire me when he decided to take the job at West Virginia. And, you know, and those are the coaches that have, like, I've come up underneath. But then in my walk and my journey, so my high school coach, who I then became his assistant, he's a Hall of Famer. I go to K-State, and our football coach is Bill Snyder, who to this day has become a friend, and he's an ally and a person that advises me. Obviously, Hugs, let's get him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I can't believe he's not in there yet. And now I end up taking the job here in South Carolina, and I'm around Steve Spurrier, who now has become a friend, Don Staley, another Hall of Famer, Ray Tanner, who was the baseball coach, and now he's my boss, another Hall of Famer. So I've been so lucky, Tom, that I've been surrounded by these ultra successful coaches during my journey that I use as resources, and I lean on them to help me with every decision I make.
So my next question was going to be almost leads right in. You kind of teed it up and ready to hit it off the tee. Is this? So you've been around all these coaches and very successful ones. And I'm looking at Bob Huggins. Coach Huggins is going to speak April 22nd at 2:00. And we're just going to talk like you and I are. Mm-hmm. And you nailed it. If he's a guy, if you ever need anything, he would do anything he could. But he's got 879 wins and 369. Hall of Fame should be all over the place for him. But you've got all these guys, men and women coaches that you've worked with and beside and for. What are some of the characteristics they had and how have they influenced you? But what are all those guys, men and women, successful coaches, are there characteristics that you see that kind of transcend all of them? Anything?
Oh, absolutely. There's one common trait. They're all different personalities. They all handle things differently. But the one common characteristic is they get out of bed and they go do their job every single day. And they demand that everyone that's around them do their job every single day. And they do it in their own specific way. They don't tie their energies or their emotions to yesterday. They don't tie it to the score of the last game. They're all connected to the people that they lead, the players, the coaches, and it's all about. Hugs has a saying. You're going to have to ask them the R-rated version. I'm going to give you the PG-rated version. An everyday guy. It's, you know, when I went to work for Hugs, you know, he doesn't use guy. He uses another word, but his deal was I need an everyday guy. And that connected with what my high school coach, Shaky Rodriguez, used to say. He just said it in a different way. And Ronnie Everhart, who I worked for at Northeastern, who's now Hugs' assistant. Ronnie's one of the great workers of all time. He never worded it that way, but he set the example by the way he did it every single day. And so that's the one common trait that Don, Bill Snyder, Steve Spurrier, Ray Tanner, Hugs, Ronnie, Shaky Rodriguez, Andy Kennedy. I mean, Anthony Grant. I mean, we just saw what kind of coach he is by what he just did with Dayton this past year. I mean, all these guys that I've been fortunate to be around, they never, ever dwell on yesterday. They learn from it, but they come back in the next day with an energy and an enthusiasm to help the people that are playing and working with them. And that's, so to Hugs's wording, everyday guy, that's the one common thread there.
One question that's already come up on the chat boards is this: what's your practices like before we get into the X and O's and the offensive end? So what's a normal practice like preseason? Maybe your non-conference, your conference schedule, getting ready for the national tournament, stuff like that. What's a practice like?
Well, I like most of us, when I was a young coach, you know, we did a lot of loose ball drills and charge drills and all that stuff. And I tried to implement that when I got into college. And what you learn is, in high school, if your best player gets hurt doing one of those drills, you lose them for 6 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 weeks. It really does not impact your team's ability to succeed in the spring, because everyone makes the district playoffs and it's a matter of winning in March. In college, you lose your best player doing one of those drills and you go 2 weeks without Michael Beasley or Sindarius Thornwell or Michael Carrera, you're going to end up losing some games, and they don't forgive you for that at the end of the year. So I've had to learn on the fly that there's some things I used to do practice-wise that I don't really do anymore now. And the few times I've done it is in desperate need, when I've got a team that has no chance to win in March. So I do it to break habits, to create an attitude, to break bad attitudes. But our practices are so much fun. I love practice. The games are getting exhausting because it's you never win. Even when you win, you don't win. You know, and it's because you got to manage all the outside voices in your players' lives right now. That when you win, you take a deep breath, you relax, and then you're in damage control, because they're going to come back in the next day thinking they're the next sensation that's going to be a pro in 3 months. And you know, and when you lose, it's misery. So it's the season, as far as games, is, you know, gets exhausting. I told John Calipari this, because I love practice. I absolutely love practice. I love planning. The most stressful part of every day of my life is planning practice, because I got to plan a practice that's going to help every player on my team get better and create the environment under which, the structure and the environment under which we're going to play. So planning everyday practice, that's the most stressful part of my day, because if you don't plan a practice that's conducive to your team learning, you're wasting time. I don't care how much basketball you know, you're wasting time. But I told Cal this last summer. We're at some AAU tournament, and I said, Cal, this is the way I try to get through the season. We get to do what we love to do, and we have 30 miserable days a year. So it's somehow, some way, you know, it's you deal with those 30 days, but it's I love high. I'm not big 5-on-0 guy. I'm not big on dummying stuff. You got to do some of that, but the game's not played that way. The game of basketball is played constantly under fire. Like, whether you're on offense or defense, it's under fire. So everything we do, I believe in the whole teaching method. It's the way I teach. So we teach the whole, we break it down, and then we try to connect the drills, the broken down drills, to the whole again. And the teaching that goes on at a high level, unbelievable intensity. You know, I tell players all the time, there's nothing more important in my practice than listening. Because as coaches, we're spending all our energies giving you information. We're not criticizing you. We're not trying to make you worse. We're not just trying to talk. We're giving you information. And it's your job as a player to listen so you can retain as much information so you can grow, which is what we're trying to do. But that's what practices are like. Usually, I used to go like 3 hours a day. Bob Huggins, when you have him on, ask him when's the last time he ran a practice under 3 hours, probably 35 years ago. You know, I've kind of scaled back a little bit. We usually go about 2:15 in the preseason. And once we get to when we're playing games, we're probably going about 145 actual court time, another 30 minutes or so of film. And then once we get late in the year, especially if your team's depleted, your manpower short, we might go by an hour and a half. But I believe in I believe in competition. The game of basketball. I don't know, Tom. Do you like the days of Bob Cousy coming down and making a two-handed chest pass to the wing? When's the last time that happened in a basketball game?
Never.
Those days have changed. Everyone defends differently. Guys are too long, too athletic. There's not enough space on the court. So everything's under duress. And so I believe in creating that environment in everything we do in practice.
I'm having deja vu right now thinking of Coach Huggins in one of his Nike championship basketball clinic presentations talking about they don't defend this way anymore. You know what I mean? So leading into the next, when we get to the offensive stuff, scouting, how much do you do? How much do you give your team? And how does it influence that play card that's in your hand or in your back pocket?
Yeah, I think scouting is huge. When you're on defense, like most of our scouting is preparing for the other team's offense. So we do most of our scouting on what we're going to defend. We do some on offense too, to give them an idea, like how they're going to defend certain things that we do. But we're trying to take them out of what they practice. And that's a big belief in what we try to teach defensively. So with that said, the way I break it down is every assistant has the same number of scouts. So, Tom McDonald, you've got team A, Troy Hilton's got team B. I'm watching 4 or 5 games of team A. So when I'm getting ready to go for team A, Tom, you're going to come in and you're going to prepare me. You're going to coach me as to what I'm going to watch. This is like the day before practice. Then I'm going to go watch. Then you and I are going to meet the morning of the game, and I'm going to share with you what I like from what you said and what I think. And then it's your job to go communicate with the other assistants as to what we're going to go teach. That's the way I do it, to try and help my assistants learn how to become head coaches. So when we walk on the floor, I'm not having a dictatorship staff meeting where I'm telling everybody what to do. I'm going to make my assistants coach each other. So now we go play, prepare the team. As soon as the game against Team A is over, now Troy comes to me and says, all right, Team B, this is the deal, boom, 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 boom. I take mental notes. I'm a better listener than I am a note taker. So I'll listen, I digest what he says, I'll go watch. I'll go meet with Troy next morning. And then I'll share the same process. Now, how much I give our team, that depends on the youth of our team. The younger the team, the less prepared they are to retain all that information. And like everything else, when you give a young kid too much information, you paralyze their minds. They don't know, they don't understand the advance. When I've got a senior-laden team, I can give more information. So that, how much we share with the team varies on that. Where I'm different than most coaches is I'm big on the next day. So once we finish, like we got a Wednesday, Saturday turn. So Tom, your scout was on Wednesday, and I meet with Troy for Thursday's practice. When we go into practice Thursday, I'm not doing a single thing of film with the team about the day before. I'm on to game B. Now, you had game A. So during the day of game A, whatever it is, because it's your scout, not mine, I got to go on to the next team. You're the one that has to come to me and say, after the game that morning, whatever, and say, hey, we did this wrong. And I'm going to say, you're exactly right. So then you're going to have to call in the players that screwed stuff up and show them individually in your office. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's the way I try to do it. And it's a way of you, number one, you don't paralyze your players by giving too much information. Our defensive concepts are predicated around making you play one-on-one. So everything we try to do is the beginning of it, the simplicity of it is what screen is coming, so they know what to defend. and then individual personnel matchups. They're going right, they're going left. When they go right, they shoot pull-ups. When they go left, they go to the rim. So they understand what they're going to deal with.
With Frank Martin. Coach, and I'm sitting here thinking about all the videos you've done with us. I mean, your defensive one you did in Baltimore last year and that clinic was, some people said, is the best defense clinic they've ever been to in their life. So let's go the opposite way now. So we had Nate Oates on the phone, or this morning on the webinar. He says they had like 300 plays.
Oh, he does too. I had to guard him this year.
So how many would, if somebody came to your practice or your games, what's your playbook? How big is it?
I make the mistake every coach makes, which is you're going through the season, you start putting new plays in. And if you actually look at how many plays we put in during the course of the year, I probably put in too many. But in reality, we don't use all that stuff. There's times we're getting ready to play you, and I'll say, I'm big on wrinkles. Like change stuff, especially if we're playing you twice. The second time we play you, I'm going to run counters to the same action I ran the first time. I'm big on that. But the easiest thing to defend are plays. The hardest thing to defend are players and concepts. If I got to defend you and they're setting a cross screen for you, but you understand how to use that cross screen in different ways, that makes it really, really difficult to defend. I think the easiest thing to defend is when you run a play for a player. I really think that's easy to defend, because at the end of the day, when you're defending, you're trying to get the player that you're running the play for to catch it further outside of the area where they're real. Let me tell you something. You guard a real good player and he catches the ball in an area that he's comfortable, you're playing the good luck defense. You know, you're hoping they miss. And good players make more than they miss from their spot. So I'm trying to make guys catch it further out. So they have to dribble. If they're a one dribble guy, I want them to have to get two dribbles to get to their shot. But everything we try to do offensively is not complicate guys and teach concepts and floor spacing, and understand that, yeah, I'm going to put some wrinkles in there because I got to go get a guy a shot during the course of a game. I need to make sure that we know what we're doing. I'm a big, always have been 3 out, 2 in guy. The old Coach Iba 2 game that Eddie Sutton ran and Bill Self runs and all that. I'm a Lon Kruger. That's where I got it from, at a clinic watching Lon Kruger, and I spent time with him and his assistants, and they helped me understand the teaching points. Later on, I got to K-State. Now I'm a head coach. Bill Self ran it better than any team I ever coached against. And when I left K-State, I sat down with Bill, and now we're not competing against each other. So Bill gave me some tips on 2 game. I got my own flavor to some of the things, but at the end of the day, those are concepts. You're working on post-ups. You're working on that spacing for 3 out, 2 in. You're working on stagger screens. You're working on pin downs. And then players understanding how to utilize those screens. I think that's really hard to guard. I'm more into that. But I do the old bunch of plays. You know what you should do? You should have Coach Crean come on here and do a 5-hour presentation of how many ball plays he runs, because his playbook is the biggest thing I remember being Huggs' assistant, and we're playing Marquette, and it's my scout, and Huggs said, "Good luck." I said, "Why?" He goes, "You'll see." I start watching Marquette play. I'm like, and then Huggs is the smartest guy ever. So I've got 70 plays that I'm coming into the scouting report with, and you're out there trying to put plays, so they got to defend. You know, the Cincinnati guys have to defend, and he'll walk by me. He says, "Hey, you're not going to put that one play where they run that double baseline screen." I'm like, "How the hell do you know this?" I mean, you know, I've been watching film for a week. You just started watching yesterday, but it's this is what I believe. We have to coach offensive basketball how we feel we can teach it the best. If running plays is what you believe in, be committed to it. Don't deviate from it. If playing in concepts you think is what you teach the best, then be committed to it and let players grow within those concepts.
I'm going to throw some things out at you. This is what on the chats they're saying. Can we see your 3 out? And then can we talk about zone, sets, inbounds, and special situations? So do you want to start talking a little bit about the 3?
Yep. I'll connect because I spoke about how fast we play. I'll connect with how we play when we're running. And because I think it's, if you're a running team, which I believe in running, and running don't mean on steals. Running means you run on makes, on rebounds, on steals. You run every single time. And as a coach, you got to let go of the rope and trust your players to play that way.
And the last thing they want, coach, is helping with press breaks.
Yeah, that's the easy one. We'll do that at the end.
Okay.
I learned this one from Hugs. And I don't care what press you run. We talk about that, it is you can manipulate who you put where, but they can't trap you. But here's what I'll do. I'm gonna use this. By the way, how about this board KBA? Let me make sure we get that KBA right in there. How about this beautiful board?
You are the best.
Look at this thing. I mean,
are you going to use it during games?
I used one of the, if I say this story, can it be retroactive? Like if you talk about officials 5 years ago, can they still find me?
I think the statute of limitations is 3 to 5, somewhere in there.
Like when I used to use these little boards, I'd break them all the time. So I like the big boards now because they're able to pull them out of my hands before I crush them. But here's what we try to do. I'm gonna do my best here. Let me put it up here. Okay, I don't know. Can you see that? There's kind of a reflection. Let me see if I can do something here.
I would just move it up a little bit so we see the. Got it. There you go.
Can you kind of see what I put in? That's my point guard. The T is a trail. The F is a fill. In front of the point guard's a 2. The other lane is a 3. I believe in a numbered break. I believe in assigning lanes to make sure there's no confusion. But, we run. We're always trying to advance the basketball, what we're trying to do. If we can't advance it, I stole this from Bob McKillop. If the point guard can't throw it up the sideline because the defense is guarding the sideline, then the point guard has to get a piece of the circle, and then everyone runs the corners. And then from the circle, you flatten the defense out. The fill guy gets underneath the rim. Remember, there's no 3 seconds with the ball in the backcourt. So he runs, gets underneath the rim, and then the point guard can make a move, and then he takes one elbow or the other. He's got to get to an elbow. He's got to fight. Bob McKillop, I spent 18 days with him in Russia with USA Basketball. He's got a great saying. He says, you fight for space. And on offense, you're constantly fighting to create space. And on defense, you're constantly fighting to take away space. That's worded unbelievable. And I use that now. I stole it from him. And I told him I was going to steal it when we were in Russia together. And now what we try to do, this one will be simpler because it's going to be on the half court. Can you see that, the spacing right there?
Perfect.
All right. So the point guard who gets an elbow, if he can't drop it on the big or make a move and drive it, he drags the dribble to the 3-point line, and then he looks to reverse the ball. The fill guy who's looking to seal, now it's all footwork. You got, I don't know what verbiage you want to say. We call it top foot pivot. Just a pivot on the top foot and ride his man up the lane so we can get the high-low. If the guy gets behind him, then can we go would I offend somebody if we got women on this? I assume there's women here too?
I'm assuming there is. Yes, sir.
Okay, so your chest to the ball. So you put the guy on your back and you get your hands out and you bury the guy and you put your chest to the ball. And then you got to make this guy your trail practice throwing the high-low or throwing the ball to a guy in our sport, we're men, that has their chest to the ball. And then you also teach ball reversal. So now when the ball gets to the trail, your 3 has to lift. So now you work on another pass, and you got to work on the footwork for every one of those passes, the high-low and the reversal pass. Now, once you reverse the ball, this guy who was working on his top foot seal or burying his matchup, now we're looking to throw it in the post from the weak side or driving the basketball. As soon as we reverse the ball, we're setting a stagger away. Okay? And that's what we do. If we happen to pass the ball up the court, so we advance past it. So the 2-man has the ball, fill, trail, PG, and 3. The PG who advanced the ball then sprints to the opposite corner. And now we're working on the same footwork, trying to drive it. We always want to try and drive from the one side. I call it the empty side and the loaded side. That's my terminology. I think that's so important that you use the same words when teaching offense. That way your players know what you're talking about. The side that has 2 players on it, we call that the loaded side. Some people call it the 2 side. The side that has 1 player on it, we call that the 1 side. This is when I tell them, when you're on the 1 side, be as aggressive as you want to be off the dribble. And then we got rules. So if we drive a baseline, we got rules. The guy at the rim gets behind. The big trail, dunk spot, and then we just space backside. If we drive it middle, everyone kind of fans out. The guy at the rim flattens out. But right now, let's talk about the different action. So if the 2-man doesn't throw it in the post or drive it, he throws it to the trail. When the ball gets to the trail, then the 3 lifts, we reverse it. Your fill guy, footwork, triangle posting. That's what I call it. That means that the footwork has to go in that triangle right there. We're trying to throw it in the post. And if not, the trail sets a single pin down for your 2 backside. That's the concept of what we try to do on offense, whether it's half court or when we're running for our 3-out to win. So that's what I mean concepts is we're constantly trying to post, constantly trying to drive you from the empty side, constantly trying to put you in staggers and in single pin downs, and then teach your players how to play on those concepts. You know, you said staggers. If it's a switching team, don't use the stagger. Either refuse it or curl the first one, and then you make it into a single. If it's a team that like Virginia, they don't switch, but they go on, you know, everything's in the paint. So they go balls like me. We try to go ball side of every screen. Virginia goes ball side. Well, you got to teach it. Now you want to flare it. So if the guy's going inside, you got to teach the footwork, and you got to teach the guard, you know, how to fade it when you're in a stagger or a single flare. You know, but that's the nuts and bolts. So now,
are you looking to go high-low as much as Kansas does, or lobs?
Well, when I've got 2 big dudes, like at K-State, I used to have a guy named Curtis Kelly and a guy named Jordan Enriquez and a guy named Wally Judge. And those guys were all in the 6'9", 6'10" range, and they were big, strong dudes. So you can go high-low. But when you got a 6'7" guy at the fill spot under the rim, that trail guy can't see him. So you got to make an adjustment. He still has to post, and that's the biggest fight you have with young players, is they only want to do their job when you're going to pass them the ball. But it's what I try to tell them, like, even though he can't throw it to you from there, you got to do your job now. So when he passes it there, now we can throw it to you. But if you wait till the ball gets there to work, you're going to end up, you know, they call it the Carmelo Anthony spot. People think that's posting up. That works in the NBA. Why? Because there's no help side defense. So you put your best player there, and you put everyone else over here. So all the defense is above that line and on this side, so that's an isolation. Try doing that against Tom Izzo's defense and see how many guys are not sitting in the paint waiting for you. You're not going to score. And, but that's our 3 out, 2 in. That's the basics of what we're trying to do. Now, to start, I used to do this in high school. In high school, I used to put the bigs at the elbows and the guards in the low block to enter, like dead ball. Got to walk it up. And we call it loop, and we tell the guards to touch. And then they come out on one side or the other. So whatever side one comes, the other one goes, the guard, one goes the other way. Point guard makes the entry pass, and then he's got an option. I tell him we want to be in staggers, or I call the single pin downs elbow screens. So I'll tell him, I said, yo, run motion 1, and I want to get into a pin down. So if we're trying to get into an elbow screen, we make the pass, point guard has to go away. That way, when the ball's reversed, it's reversed to the 2 side. There's your pin down. You see it? If I want to be in staggers, when he makes the pass, the point guard goes strong side. So now when we work on our ball reversal, post up drive, now we're in position to make a stagger screen on the backside. If I want to put the 2-man in a stagger screen or the 2-man in an elbow screen, I'll say run motion 1, and I want so-and-so in an elbow screen. That means enter it to that guard, go away, and now that guard's going to look to reverse the ball so we can put them in a pin down.
Coach, can I ask you one quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ask you one question?
Yep.
This is from Kevin. He has, with the rise or the more you look at analytics in recent years, have it changed your offensive philosophy or is your how you do things?
Listen, I'm a math teacher. You know what I learned in math? I can spin numbers that get you to think whatever the heck I want you to think. So I'm not this new wave of analytics. They got you thinking all this stuff. You know who wins the game? Whoever scores the most at the rim. That's who wins the game. Everyone talks about Golden State. Yeah, it's awesome. I love watching them play. They shoot more free throws and pass the ball more than any team in the NBA. They shoot more layups than any team in the NBA. Now the conversation is, all right, what do you do with that 15, 17-foot shot? I think telling a player that's really, like I had a guy this year named Mike Kotsar, stunk from the 3-point line. 6'10" kid, really just couldn't shoot threes. Did not like at the rim dealing with another guy hitting him on the head. Never felt comfortable with that. Deadly from 15. So why would I tell him not to shoot a 15-foot shot that he makes at a high rate? It's I think that whole analytics stuff, I get it, man. Some people, this is what I love about college basketball, Tom, okay? There's different ways to win. It's not the same game for every team. It's not everyone play the same. Like you watch the NBA because of the defensive rules and the short clock, 90% of the teams play the same exact way. Offense and defense. It's boring to watch. You know what I love about college basketball? That back in the day, Phil Ford's 4-corner offense won a championship. You know what else I love? That Pete Carrill became Pete Carrill because of the Princeton offense. And, it's different ways of doing things, whether it's the Loyola Marymount, Hank Gathers, Bo Kimball, let's score 200 points a game, whether it's the 4 corners. That's what I love about college basketball is that it's about attacking defenses. It's about taking good shots. It's about taking the shots that fit your team. And that's the way I try to coach. I'm not big on the whole. I'll tell you what I'm totally against, taking contested shots early on the clock. We have a saying on our team: score early, run, attack, be a basketball player, score late. Don't take off the dribble jump shot with 18 on the clock. Don't do that. If that's the best shot we can get, then I'm going to tell you the same player, because let's say that's a shot you make 1 out of 4 times, which that's what the percentage of those shots go in. If that's the shot you're going to take, then shoot that at the end of the clock. But in the meantime, I'm big on layups. Our defensive rules are no layups, no threes, because that's what everyone tries to do these days. So it allows me to dictate defensively what I want to eliminate. By the way, let me not say something that's not true, but I'm pretty sure we led the SEC in three-point field goal percentage defense, and we're one of the top 10 teams in the country at it. That's important to us. Now, where we messed up, and it's the way teams like Nate Oates attacked us, we were really aggressive at getting out, but very young, and we had no real shot blocker. So people would drive us. We were one of the worst fouling teams in the country because our guys that were running at the ball, they're just too young. And then we didn't have the rim protection we needed. But that's something that we can teach now. We can get better at it, because you don't get better on offense or defense by doing the easy things. You get better by doing the hard things. And when you do the hard things, like closing out and making guys dribble, that's really hard, and keeping them in front. That's really, really hard. So we do that first, and that's what we force. And now as guys go through their journey in our program, then they get real good at closing out and not getting beat off the dribble. And that's defensively what we try to do. But on offense, I think you got to take advantage of your players' talent. I mean, Michael Beasley, are you kidding me? That guy from 12 feet was never missed. So I'm going to tell him, don't shoot it from there, because you got to shoot threes and layups. The reason that other stuff kind of makes sense to some coaches, so everyone plays 4 out, 1 in. So everything's about the ball going in and back out. And when it goes back out, I'm all for it. I got a guy on my team that's a shooter. And I tell him, anytime the ball goes paint out, shoot it. I don't care. I don't want you to hesitate. You're open, you shoot it. But if they pass you the ball like point to wing, don't shoot the three. And I think that's our job as coaches, to create that clarity for our players.
Let me ask you this one. Coach likes having his players use screens, come off screens. Is there a progression that he does to help his posts or their screen angles, plus guards making reads on whether to curl or fade?
Yeah, this is my rule. Sprint to screen. And if this is, obviously, I'm not talking about ball screens. That's the last thing I teach, because everybody ball screens. So it's easy to guard that, because that's what you guard every single day. But no one guards screens anymore. Nobody, very few teams said, staggers, pin downs, floppies, very few teams. Cross screens, flares, very few teams do that. So I want to use those concepts on offense, because no one practices that anymore. So my rules are real simple. The screener, sprint to screen. When you get to your spot, put your chin, especially if it's any kind of stagger or pin down where you're running away from the ball. The screener, get to your spot, and then you put your chin on your inside shoulder. Why? If I put my chin on my inside shoulder, I can see the cutter and I can see the ball. Because if my man gets above me, I got to slip behind his head. So that way I can see both. And then the line I use for the cutters is, I'd rather you come off late than early. If you're going to make a mistake because you took too long to come off the screen. But don't come off the screen too early, and now it's a moving screen. Or now you made a cut and the defense was sitting on it, and you ran yourself into a bad play. That's a terminology. And then, everything is predicated. You got to teach angles. The screener has to change his angle. You can't set moving screens. That means, so I'm here. If the defender goes on this side, I can't go that way. That's a moving screen. But if the defender goes on this side and the offensive guy, I tell him to hit the shoulder. I see the defender disconnected to my body to go on that side. I'm going to hit the shoulder, change the angle. And you got to teach that. And now the defender's on this side and the shooter is hiding behind the screen. But what you can't do is stand there like this. Then you get nothing done. But what you definitely can't do is slide that way, because then it's a moving screen. That's nuts and bolts, like here, the way we're doing this, which is awesome, by the way. That's the best way I can explain that. Same thing with cross screens. Like, so if you got a good big guy and you want to set a cross screen for him, well, you got to figure out how the defense is defending it. If they're gonna cheat the screen, then turn and screen again, throw a lob. Excuse me, I did it backwards. You go screen, there's the big, and his man jumps on this side of the screen, flip the angle, throw a lob. If the guy goes on the baseline side of the screen, there's the screen, there's the big, his defender goes underneath the screen, get to the screen and stop. And now you get as big as you can right there. That guy's got to be, it's going to be below you. You know, same thing if the guy goes over the screen. You always cut opposite side of whatever they guard. So if that guy playing over, you cut on the baseline side and you stay right there. You don't ever run outside the paint. You know, and those are the little teaching points that we try to use.
You want to go on to zone off? Let me ask you this: in the SEC, or you're like this year, 80% man-to-man, 20% zone. What percentage of opponents play what?
We had turnover in the coaches in the league this year, but like when you play Kentucky, Cal's playing man-to-man. You know, when you play Ben Howland, he's playing man-to-man. You play us, we're playing man-to-man. Now, I've played more zone last year than I probably ever played. Part of the reason is that I only had 7 guys because of injuries. Our 8th man was a walk-on, so I had to play more zone. I had no choice. But we had new coaches in the league, and I think there was some unknown. So the new guys kind of try to feel their way through the league a little bit. That's what makes winning in conference, I don't care what league you coach in, so hard, because everyone that's been in the league knows each other. So the games are really hard. And then when you get new coaches in, they don't know what you do, but guess what? You don't know what they do either. And your players don't have a feel for it. So you go in the games and you try to adjust on the fly. But yeah, I'd say our league is a predominantly man-to-man team. Conzo Martin of Missouri, they're going to play man. Rick Barnes, playing man. Every once in a while, Rick will throw his own in there for a couple minutes, but it's just to kind of offset it he's going to be man 85, 90% of the time. Think about those coaches I just called out. You think I lose sleep once January hits? Holy cow.
You want to talk a little bit about what you look at zones? Odd, even, front, maybe?
Yeah, I'm for me, I don't know if I'm an oddball. I look at things differently sometimes. I don't worry about whether it's 1 up top or 2 up top. I worry about how many guys you got on the baseline. If you've got more guys on the baseline than you do up top, so if you're a 2-3 zone guy or a 1-1-3 guy, if that's what I see when I'm watching film, I'm keeping 4 guys up there. I'm making your zone come up. If you don't come up, we're shooting jump shots. If you come up, we're getting behind your zone and attacking the rim. And if your zone gets spread out sideline to sideline, then we're throwing it in the middle and attacking you from there. If I see a team that's top heavy, however you want to, 1-3-1, 3-2 zone, 1-2-2, whatever. I see a team that only has 2 or 1 guy down there. Then I put guys on the baseline. And I'm going to attack you usually off a 2-guard front. And then depending on what defense you're in, we're either going to attack you that way, 3 on the baseline, or we're going to attack you that way. So I'm always trying to figure out, who's on the baseline for you. If you got more on the baseline, then I'm keeping 4 guys near the foul line and above it.
Coach, you talked about the high-low motion. But you go whole part whole as your philosophy of teaching.
Yep.
Do you have any breakdown drills for the 3 out, 2 in?
Yeah, we break it up, guards and bigs. And then we also break it up for 3 out, 2 in to work. You know, the problem is here's what us guys that still teach 3 out, 2 in. If you're not teaching the post up and you're not teaching post entries, you're wasting your time. And fact of the matter is that most kids, no one teaches them that in high school anymore. So they get to college and you fight them to learn that, and they're not good at it because no one's ever made them learn. So when they're not good at something, they're not committed to it. So it's your job to make them understand and make them grow and learn. And, you know, I've got a saying, the game has changed. It really changed. Why? But if you look at the history of the NBA, I think out of the top 35 scores in the history of the NBA, I haven't researched this in a couple years, 28 played in the low post, you know, and that's including Michael and Kobe and a lot of the great guards, the Big O, just keep going. Those guys played, you know, either in the low post or in the elbows, and which are post ups for smaller players when you play out of the elbow. You know, I think that's, you know, no one teaches that anymore, but I try to utilize that kind of information to convince players that can be good in there. Like, man, you can stand out and you can make a living if you learn to do that. So, but we'll teach it, break it down, guards and bigs. Why? Because the guards have to learn the timing of the cuts. So we'll put a coach as the trail. And now the guard has to understand how to cut depending on how he's played, you know, because there's no screen. So they have to get open. And you got to teach them the different ways people guard, tag and trail, above you to deny, off the body. You know, whatever it is that the team you're playing, you got to teach every concept. You can't just teach it the day before the game. You got to use preseason and the offseason to teach that. And then with the bigs, you're constantly teaching them what I was talking about earlier, the footwork. And then you do it 1 against 1, and then you do it 2 against 2, and make the bigs throw the high-low pass. And make the big understand how to seal and just put a coach or somebody and make that wing entry. I've got a rule for the bigs. If you catch the ball with a foot touching the paint, don't dribble. Find the rim, shoot the ball. If you catch the ball and you're not in the paint, then slow down. And now what we teach, same thing Hugs teaches, is you chin it and you quarter turn to the middle of the floor. So you want footwork. So you do that. Well, then you bring in 2 guards and a big. And what happens is you get the big to set like the floppy screen. So that guard has to get open. I don't care if he fades or he curls. This guard has to make a contested. Remember, I told you I like everything contested. I don't like that let's go against the chair technique that everyone loves today's day and age. So now that big has to set a screen. That guard has to use this guard who's being defended has to make a pass, and the big's working on getting the post up. And then this guard is kind of spacing. I got court spacing that we assign anytime we throw it in the post. Okay, so that the 2 guards are getting to the 2 spots, which are both slots, if he throws it in the post. And we just work on that like that. And then eventually we do it 4 against 4. So now we got the 2 bigs, the 2 guards, no point guard. I'll have a coach as the point guard. And now you set whatever screens you want to initiate offense and you enter it. And then the bigs, you get 1 low, 1 high. And then you get the turn. And now that big's trying to throw the high-low. If not, he's reversing. And the guard that now is trying to get open for ball reversal, now he's working on post-entry passes. You know, and I've got a real simple rule. If the big does his job and gets below and lifts, you're throwing the ball over the top. So you fake low, pass high. If the big gets the guy in his back and he's chest to the ball, you fake high and you bounce it in there. I think I give clarity on what's the pass I want to make. And if you can't make the pass, I tell them either you see the paint open, drive it. That means help defense not in the paint, drive it. If help defense is in the paint, pass it. So it's the progression that we try to teach. That's how we teach that, try to break it down.
I'm going to give you 3 things, see if you can hit them. Set plays, just if you have a couple sets, man, maybe one, maybe zone if you want. Inbounds, we've had a lot of inquiries about like inbounds underneath, inbounds off the side. And then we can talk about special situations and numbered break and press break if you want to hit some of those quick.
Yeah, I mean, the set plays are great. And I think this year I kind of ran some different set plays because we went more to a 4-out, 1-in look because of our personnel. But off the 3-out, 2-in, we ran, we had a 4-man that can shoot. And we lifted the 5-man, drug the 4 down, and the 5-man reversed the ball there, and he came to set a pin down for that guy. And when he came to set a pin, my 5-man could drive the ball. Couldn't shoot it, but he can drive the ball. So when this guard came off this pin down, this 4 ran to the strong side corner. And now we told this guard, I don't care how they defend you, you curl. So now this guy's in a hard curl. The ball's on this guard over here. If he can see that pass, he makes it. If not, he's going to dribble up. The 5-man's chasing the spot he just came from. So now you got guard, 4-man who's a shooter, and now your 5-man drives the ball. That's if you got a big that's a good dribble driver, that just create that floor spacing. And it's a way to get a layup off of it. Because if you got a big that can't shoot, but he's actually a pretty good dribbler, it's a way to get this 4-man an open shot. Or get your 5-man to drive the ball, and with his man in a closeout. If he can't drive the ball because his man's waiting for him back here, then I tell him, immediately dribble hand off this guard. The same guy that threw it to you, dribble hand off that guard. And now that guard's unguarded at the top of the key. That's something that we ran this past year out of that 3-out, 2-in. I'm trying to think something I run for. I got a small forward that's not a very. I shouldn't say very good. He shooting the 3 is not his deal, but he's so active that 12 feet and in, he's pretty good. So what we did with him was. Excuse me. We put him in the single pin down or the stagger, one or the other. It don't matter. If it's a single pin down, he curls it. If it's a stagger, he curls the first and comes to take a post up right there. And I tell him you can either go low or go to the elbow. I don't care. That means the ball's over here. And now this is a big, and that's the other guard. So then the other big is stepping out to the short corner. Not to the 3, to the short corner. So if his man sits there, he sprints into a ball screen. Does that make sense? Once again, concepts. It's what I believe in.
It's great.
If his man stays home and you front him on that curl because you switch over the top. If he feels the elbow, throw it to him at the elbow, and now you got a play from the elbow. You got your pass and go play. And then if nothing else is there, whether he takes the low post, the high post, short corner, guard with the ball, now you got a weak side pin down right there. So that's something that we try to do, to try and we do a bunch of different things, Tom.
Yep. Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
When the ball goes into the post, what are your rules? And
Yep.
does it change if the post player is to catch the ball off the block?
Yeah. Well, the rule is real simple. It's what I said earlier. If he's in the paint and he's unaggressive, I'm making him go run on the treadmill. Shoot the ball, man. You know how hard it is to get the ball in the paint? Shoot it. Just shoot it. We don't need you to dribble. Shoot it. Find it. The defense is on this shoulder. Find the rim over this shoulder, turn and shoot it. If he's on this shoulder, turn to the other side and shoot it. You know, we work on that. You know, it's but you get the ball in the paint and the guy holds the ball or dribbles it. What are we doing? You know, it's but when the ball's not in the paint, then we teach, it's a Bob Huggins terminology, chin it and quarter. Okay, so let's say the guy catches the ball right in that area right there. The other big, because of the way we play, was at the top of the key. As soon as that ball goes into the low post, the other big dives and gets as flat as he can. Biggest mistake they make is they stop there. You can't stop there. You got to go get behind the backboard and outside the paint. Okay, and then the spacing we want from the guards are slot, slot, opposite corner. That's the spacing we want. We tell the big with the ball in the low post, try and get to the front of the rim. Obviously, they take the front of the rim, they can turn to the baseline, but you got to make sure that they're prepared to understand how to score with a guy his size on his shoulder and he's facing the backboard. That's not an easy play. You got to make them understand how to score there and put them in that situation. Turn to the front. If his man at any time helps, he cuts behind his head. If he doesn't feel that he can make that turn because the guards are digging, throw it out to any guard. If he throws it to this guard, he chases his ball, chases his pass with the ball screen, this big automatically crosses. In essence, that's our spacing and our concepts that we teach.
Coach, do you have time to talk about press offense? And then we'll end it with maybe if Troy's got something, and then we'll end it after that.
Yep. I don't know how many guys remember, you know, Patino had it rolling at Providence and then Kentucky with the full court press, and it was chaos. And who was his player at Providence? Billy Donovan. Who was his assistant at Kentucky? Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan gets hired at Florida. We already knew each other from him recruiting our players. He hires Anthony Grant. So I used to go up there to Gainesville and watch them practice all the time. And it was pandemonium. I mean, trying to deal with that pressure. Like Mike Anderson, I'm so happy he took the St. John's job. We've coached against each other every year we've been a head coach. And, you know, in that unbelievable press that they run, so all these coaches that believe in pressing, they make it really, really hard. So I went to work for Hugs, and Hugs has a big theory. He calls it 1 up, 2 up, and that means if he wants 1 guard up or 2 guards up. But regardless of what he runs, his court spacing against the press is keep the ball in the middle of the floor. Three across. And then the last guy way down there. So you got to run a guy here to make sure you keep people back. What I always tell this guy is you're not there to dribble it up the court. You're there to hope that they double you. If they double you, all these guys take a step to the ball. If you don't see any of the 3, throw it to the other rim. I don't know how you come double him and these 3 guys, one of them's not open if you keep a guy back to protect that layup. So that's the concept that we use. The biggest, guys got to do what they got to do. But, people run guys to the corner. You're begging to get trapped. It's hard as heck to pass the ball to the corner if you're a player. Well, so let's say you're one of these teams that passes it and steps that guy in and has a guy right there. So if you rotate over, he flashes there. I get that. All right, I understand that. Well, those guys, Billy Donovan, then they don't go trap you there. They wait till you dribble that, then they go get you. And so now you got the ball in a bad space because now you're begging this guy to dribble it up the sideline. And my rule is it's okay to pass it to the sideline. Don't ever dribble it on the sideline. It's okay. And if you're on the sideline, don't catch it in a corner. Those are my rules that I tell players. And the guy without the ball, it's his job to not be in a corner. And it's pretty simple. And then, you know, I like putting a shooter down here, not a big, a shooter. Because then what we try to do is the following. What we try to do is the following. So now, if I see here comes a double and I pass it, if you let me throw it to the middle, God bless you. I mean, it's a jailbreak, and this guy can choose either corner. And that guy knows. I coach him. I tell him, you got 2 dribbles. If you take more than 2 dribbles without passing the ball, you're coming out of the game. Because teams that want you to throw it there, they're coming from behind. So he's got 2 dribbles and pass it, okay? But if you don't let me throw it to the middle and we hit that sideline, we call this the middle guy slices the court. The shooter extends to the corner. Opposite guy fills. And we call it slice and fill. The point guard who passed it has to stay behind the ball. And that's what we try to do. And now I teach this pass, that pass. So now what happens? Here's the fill. Usually the guys on the sidelines are bigs. There's the fill. If I see that ball go there, I am gone. I am gone. And then this big, as soon as he passes, he's cutting there. So this guy takes, that guy goes. If you throw it there, now that's your guard. Who do people usually put in the back of their press? Bigs. They don't come out, shoot the ball. You got both bigs running to the rim to rebound. If he does come out, drive him. And if he drives, then space it and go make a play. So that's the crux of what we try to teach.
You got.
Oh, by the way, I said the whole Patino Donovan story at the beginning. I asked Billy one time, little did he know I was going to end up at South Carolina. I asked him, I said, when you guys are doing all your presses, because they had different kinds of presses within the press. I said, what's the one thing that bothered you? And he says, anytime people went 3 across. He says, it's hard to press. It's hard to press teams that go 3 across. So I used to be in high school a 2-1-2 guy. I've completely went away from that, and it's all that 1-3-1 look.
Well, if you want those 2 videos that Billy Donovan did and Mike Anderson, just go to Championship Productions. There you go. You have time for 2 questions?
Yeah.
First one is this.
Hey, Tom, seriously, what are we all doing right now?
Doing a running errands or cleaning around the house. That's what we're doing.
This gave me an excuse to be a ball coach again rather than a handyman.
All right. Can you run the 3 out, 2 in with 4 guards?
Yeah, you can. I would tell you, try and figure out a way to get that 4th guy that you want to call your power forward, to play at the top of the key, and the guy you're posting to play down low. When I got to play small, what I try to do is I'll run my small guy to the rim early. You're not throwing it in the post on the first side. You're not throwing it in there on the first side. Good teams aren't letting you throw it into the post on the first side of the floor. So you got to get ball reversal. So what I would do is I would send my smaller player down on the first side, my post-up guy to trail. On ball reversal, instead of keeping the post up, I go back screen them. So now if they want to switch, now your big's going to post the other team's 4. And now your 4 steps out. Now your big has to come guard the 4. If they don't switch, you're going to create the angle to help the 5 get the post up, and then your smaller player steps to the top of the key. And now this is where you can get cute with it. The ball goes back to the top of the key to the smaller player. Now you can drive it from there. Or you can reverse it to either side. I like to tell our 4 guys, once the ball gets, if we're playing small, once the ball gets back to the top of the key, try to throw it to the 2 side as much as you can. Why? because when you throw it to the 2 side, you eliminate a help side defender. So now you can throw your post entry, and now the 4-man goes to set that wide pin down away from the pass. Well, now you do all kinds of crazy stuff because you got 2 guards in it. You can kind of screen the cutter instead of using it. He can screen in, and you can flare your 4-man. You can slip it. You can curl it to a step back. You do all kinds of, great stuff. You can fade it, bump it, and then run your 4-man into a ghost screen. Those are things we try to do when we play small. We try to play out of 3 out to win.
Do you ever post up the guards?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Every once in a while you play somebody that posts. We don't post guards up a lot. I like like the year we went to the Final Four. Our biggest advantage is we had PJ Dozier, 6'7", point guard. Sindarius Thornwell, 6'5", 220-pound 2-guard. If you had small guards, I was posting those 2 guys from the elbow. The biggest mistake I think we make as coaches, especially in high major basketball, is dudes are really big. The closer to the rim you get, the less you can see. So we try to post up guards on the low post. There's big dudes all over the place. It's hard to pass the ball from down there if you're a smaller player. You might be bigger than your matchup, but once again, it's not the NBA. There's help side defense. So if they do double him, it's going to be hard for him to see that next pass. And if they just stand in the paint with their hands up, it's hard to make that skip pass. So I like posting them off guards. I like posting them off the elbow. But we teach our guards to post up in practice just so they understand the physicality. So if we get switched off in a game or cross-matched, they're prepared to defend the low post against a bigger player.
Coach, could you walk through how you inbounds the ball using your 1-3-1 alignment for press break?
Yep. Man, I'm giving out all my secrets. Nate Oates is sitting there watching this right now.
I'll check and see if he is. All right.
Jesus. All right, I'm going to use the court because this beautiful KBA board that I was given, the baseline is black, and I got a black marker here, so you can't see it. But the inbounds passer is, whatever side the referee tells him to be at. Okay, it depends how you press. If you're a go trap the first pass guy, I put my point guard as the inbounds passer. If you're kind of more of a 2-2-1 kind of guy, then I put my 3-man as the inbounds passer. Okay, I always tell my best passing big, get on the side of the ball. I tell the 2, let's say the 3's inbounding right now. I tell the point guard. Let me do this again. I'm inbounding with the 3. I tell the 2 guard to get on the same side as the inbounds passer. I tell the point guard to get opposite, and I tell my worst passing big to be opposite the side of the inbounds passer. I bring everyone up on purpose, not to keep them there, to make you bring your guys up. If you don't bring your guys up, I'm assuming we're talking a zone press, okay? If you don't bring your guys up, we're throwing the ball inbounds right there. He's running. We never throw him the ball in the backcourt. And the 1-man's right behind. He's getting diagonal. He steps in right behind the ball. And we're looking to throw it up the sideline or to the middle, the point guard. If it gets to the middle of the point guard, again, 2 dribbles, jailbreak. He's running. Excuse me. He's running. Bang, bang, pass it, and go make a play. Okay? If you can't throw it to either the sideline or the middle, and you go backwards to the 3, there's the 2. He immediately gets out. The point guard becomes your middle player. Your 5 stays on the sideline. The 4-man has the other sideline. There's your 3 across. And now you got your 2, excuse me, the 2 who ran the sideline, you got them down there. That's what we try to do. If you bring guys up to take that sideline, first pass to the sideline away, If you bring someone up to take that pass away, then we tell him to get the hell out. If he gets out, he gets out. And then we set a screen, one to the ball, one long. Don't run to the corner. We work on that cut right there. One to the ball, one long, a lot. If the guy that goes to the ball is not open, he's got a fan sideways, this guy has to come back. And we spent a lot of time on understanding that right there.
Coach, we had 2 questions, one from Troy and then myself, and we're done.
Yep.
Go ahead, Troy.
Frank, thanks again for being here today. You know, I've been with the NABC for a long time. Hugs has always been one of my favorites since early on. And since I got to know you at K-State, you've been right there with him. So the 2 of you guys have been great to me, and I appreciate both of you so much. You're both known for your toughness and your intensity. Your teams are known for that. Your players are known for that. And it's what I enjoy about it. Taking measurables out of the equation, when you're recruiting, do you find it's better, or do you have more success finding guys that are tough and intense and basketball IQ while you're recruiting them and you're going to teach them your basketball? Or do you look for skills guys that you're going to teach them the toughness and intensity?
Well, that's gotten a lot more difficult than it used to be.
Right.
Very, very few people are challenging kids in high school anymore. And so some kids don't like it. Some kids just never been challenged. And we have to figure that out. I like to find a guy that has a little bit of both, that has the skill level. But he has the willingness to get coached. And that's why I'm real patient in recruiting. You know, I'm not, if you go read all the social media recruiting gurus, you rarely hear South Carolina offered a scholarship, because I'm very patient in recruiting, because that's so important to me, Troy, making that identification. I'm not trying to win the battle of you know, some people want to win a press conference. I can care less about winning a press conference. You know, I gotta recruit the guy that fits who we are, that can come in and succeed in how we play and how we coach and how we teach. You know, I had someone ask me one time, like, man, you're so passionate on the sidelines and you're hard on these kids. And do you teach class that way? I said, absolutely not. And they said, so why do you coach basketball? I said, because I didn't recruit my students. I recruit my players. And when I go recruit my players, I'm finding guys that want to be coached that way, that want to be challenged, that want to be held accountable. It's part of who they are. It's what their parents want. So that's who I am. The guys that don't want to do that, I'm not signing them. Sounds good at the press conference, but they don't fit who we are. And that used to be a little easier. Like, you know, go find one of Bob Hurley's guys or Morgan Wooten's guys, 2 guys that did it completely opposite ways. Coach Hurley, by the way, one of my favorite people ever of all time. You went to his practice. You didn't have to be inside his gym. You'd be across the street. You know what they were doing. You went to Coach Wooten's practice. You could barely hear what he was saying, but yet they were both being held accountable. So, you know, if you coached either one of those kids, when they came into you, they wanted to be coached. And now, you know, that's become a challenge, and trying to find that has gotten really complicated in recruiting. But you know, Troy, I'm not trying to hedge on what you're asking me. If I'm going to make a mistake on one or the other, I'm going to take the kid that plays harder and buys into that before I take the kids with all the skills. Because the guy with all the skills, if he don't connect to what we're trying to do, those skills are going out the window. And in today's day and age of transferring, you're not coaching them but for 1 year anyways. Well, that hard-playing guy is going to stay the course and eventually grow as a player and help you win.
Coach, last question. I noticed when I was going through your bio, you've been a member of the NABC for 26 years.
Yeah.
That means you were a high school coach when you became a member. Why?
I had not, you know, I coached 8 years of high school ball, and, you know, I'm in Miami. There was no basketball. When I was growing up in Miami, there was no NBA. University of Miami didn't have basketball. FIU didn't have basketball. All we had was our high school basketball team. That's all we had. So now, here comes the University of Miami in 1985, and they started a basketball program. That's the first year I coached. And then here comes the Miami Heat in 1988. So now basketball starts growing in South Florida. And my high school coach, he used to go to all the Final Fours every single year. And Shaky was an NABC member. I was young and stupid. I didn't understand the value of that. And then one of my closest friends to this day, George Fernandez, when he finished his playing career, he went to work at a bank for 3 years, and I was already coaching high school ball. And he hated working at that bank. All he wanted to do was talk to me about practice. So he ends up starting to coach, and he gets a college job. And he calls me and says, hey, you got to go to the Final Four in Charlotte. I don't know if you guys remember that in 1994. Downtown Charlotte, I think there was like no buildings. The lights were off at 6 p.m. every night. But the NABC set up all these temporary kind of restaurants and bars under tents because there's nothing to do in downtown Charlotte in 1994. And that's the first Final Four that I was a part. I went to one in Seattle, but I wasn't an NABC member. By the way, what great Final Fours in Seattle back in the day. But that's the first one I went to, and I said, with George, and I said, man, I got to join the NABC, and I did. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Just you get to understand how many guys are out there, you know, because I used to go as this, I was a JV high school coach at the time. And you're standing in a hotel lobby, and you look to your left, and you got Bob Huggins, who you don't know, and you look to the right, and I'm just God honest truth, and I see some white-haired guy walking around with Mike Krzyzewski, and I'd be like, who's that guy? Because I know who Krzyzewski is. I know who's that guy. Well, it's our guy that made the NABC the great thing that it is right now, in Coach Haney, and you know, and then you start going through the years, and because of the NABC, you start getting to meet people. My first one, Tom, used to go to the tents, the big display room, and they had free beer and free gifts. So you went in there with your little coupons, and I thought it was awesome because I can drink free beer, and I got gifts that I can give to everyone back home to let them know that I was at the Final Four. And that was, but you get to meet all the people. KBA, you get to meet those folks there, and they don't care if you're a JV coach or you're Bob Huggins. They give you their time the same way. And so it's and now here we are a bunch of years later, man, and I get to sit on the board, and I've gotten to know the leadership and the vision, and you know, and it's a very powerful organization that for all the coaches that are out there that are listening, believe me, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes by guys like Troy, that no one, you know, we all pay attention to the guy on television that's winning a national championship, but there's a lot of people that work really, really hard to create an organization that represents coaches. And, you know, we got to keep growing it, and times have changed. You know, I say it all the time. People are the same, times have changed. And we as people just have to adapt to times on what's important to people. You know, people used to interact in person. Now look what we're doing. This is the way my kids, they don't know anything about hanging out in the park. They play video games like we're playing, like we're speaking right now. And to grab those young coaches, that's how they communicate. This is what's important to them. So we continue to work to figure out. I'm speaking to the choir, to you and Troy, because you guys know this is what we're talking about. But we're continuing to grow so we can make this the organization as powerful it can be, because it doesn't impact the coaches on TV. It impacts all coaches because it's a way of sharing information and growing.
Coach, did you sign the waiver so that NABC can use that on their next promotional piece right there?
I don't know. And even, hey, and if I didn't, they know I'm fair game. You guys can use any nonsense that comes out of my mouth whenever you need it.
I'll tell you, I think what you said was well said. It couldn't have been said any better. Troy, anything from you before we adjourn?
No, go eat some dinner, Frank. We appreciate the time.
Coach, here's tomorrow's schedule. Rob Senderoff at 10 a.m. Central Time. Gino Auriemma 11. Matt Woodley on the pack line. He coached with Tony Bennett at Washington State. Landry Kosmolsky from Smartmore, and then Jamie Dixon, the president of the NABC. Troy, I'll see you tomorrow.
What an unbelievable lineup. Do me a favor. When you get Gino, tell him two things. He's the second best coach born on March 23rd. That's number one. And number two, Hogs beats him at the card table every single time. Make sure you tell him that.
I'm writing it down right now.
Hey, but by the way, everyone that's watching, what you're getting from all these coaches coming on here, share, is because of these two guys that are on here, Troy and Tom. This is their baby, their creation, and the amount of time that they've put in to make this work for coaches across the board is phenomenal. And that's why I'm proud to sit on the board with these guys.
I'll tell you the last one, Coach. During the weekend, I got phone calls from the Coach Howard from LaSalle, Lon Kruger from Oklahoma, Kelvin Sampson, Houston, and Brad Underwood from Illinois. They all said, hey, I want to get involved, so we added another day.
Give Brad his own day. You get Brad talking. He starts at 10 a.m. He'll finish at 8 p.m. So make sure you give him his own day.
No, I don't want that.
Hey, thanks for everything, Coach. Have a
Appreciate
wonderful
you
day.
guys.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yep.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.